But we'll try to oblige some mics. We like to use our time wisely, so we'll get going. Thanks for coming to Wealth Building. Does anybody remember what we talked about last month? Was that last month?
Were you asking because you want to know, or you just don't?
Yeah, I don't remember. I thought somebody would know. No? Was it? Okay. Anybody have any key takeaways from last month? He's wealthy. Why is he wealthy? And held on to it? Okay, so that's key. Man, it's good because he brought up a couple of key components and you took some action where we're dealing with Mountain America, talking about a 10% down program. Did you ever get the answer to that? Yeah. Are they still doing it? Cool. All right, awesome. The main takeaway is if we don't take action, we're just here learning. And I'm all for learning, but if we don't actually apply it, you can't really get ahead in life. So with that being said and done, why are you here today? Do you have any goals?
I'm here to learn.
You're just here because your girlfriend said, hey, show up.
That was a large part of it, but I'm excited to learn. So.
Okay. Anybody else have any reasons for showing up today? Linda.
I want to hear Marcel's story.
Awesome. Okay. Right. Anybody else? Not only will Marcel entertain us, but he's actually a pretty humble guy. So I've been working with Marcel for what, 12, 14 years?
Yep.
And I got connected with him because I was working with another title guy in his office, and he was too lazy to come to a meeting, and Marcel came and we became friends, right? So with doing more deals, you see different perspectives, and Marcel has a different perspective. As a humble guy, you're not going to know that he's worth some money, or he's got some assets, or he possesses a great deal of knowledge when it comes to investment and retirement accounts and just overall wealth accumulation, right? Sure. So he's got a day job. He does Real Advantage Title. He's got 4 kids.
Yep.
He's got a dog.
I do got a dog, yeah.
He's way into classic cars. He's got more cars than many people have properties, right? And he has properties. So
They're all junk cars, so don't get...
Anyways.
Sold a minivan, yeah, sure.
We'll kind of help. He's open to having it conversational and asking questions along the way, but he's got a great presentation plan. So give it up for Marcel Giles.
Yeah, so I think we've all been sat in a lot of these things, and someone comes up and they go through their spill and they're, God's gift, right? I am not God's gift. I'm just a regular guy. Those guys are kind of annoying. So I'm just going to go through. Justin just said, hey, can you just come and talk about some of the stuff you do? I don't know if I have much insight, but I love to learn. As we're going through and I'm kind of talking about different programs or whatnot, or things that I've done, hey, tell me if there's a better way. I've made my mistakes and I've had a little bit of luck. And so I think that's kind of where I go. So I worked for a small company years and years ago, and I wasn't offered a 401k, much like you guys, right? And so I know I wanted to do something. So those were kind of my goals back in the day, and I wanted to retire. I didn't have like lofty how much money I wanted to make, things like that. I was single, and so I just wanted to do something. So that's kind of why I put that stuff there, because that's really where I started. I wasn't smart like you guys to sit in these rooms and kind of get kind of the ins and outs. I kind of just jumped into it. So my plan is to kind of go through my process and how I acquired this and did that, just to kind of show that there wasn't like one plan, one formula. I just kind of rolled with it. I surrounded myself with people that push me. I'm very conservative by nature. And so one person that really pushed me was Justin, actually. And so, as you guys all know, Justin, he likes to ask those questions that make you squirm a little bit. And so he's helped me out a lot. So I went to school at Utah State, and then I came down here, and I was renting, and I didn't want to rent. So I bought my first home in Sugar in 2003. And that was back in the day where you could do an 80-20. Does anyone remember the 80-20s? Yeah, so those are nice. You get 80% loan and then 20% like second through Wells Fargo or some HELOC that was fixed, and you're able to get a house with no money down. It was awesome. This one had a mother-in-law apartment, so I was living a sweet bachelor life, so I lived in the basement, right? Most girls like to date a guy in the basement, and then I rented out the upstairs. So that's kind of my first one, and then I had a really good friend who wanted to get into real estate, and so I said, well, why don't we, buy a house together? And so we bought a duplex in Mill Creek, and so I said, why don't we buy it? He also did an 80-20 when this was still good to go. So he moved in owner occupied, but we did an ARM because at that time the rates were high. They were in the fives. So we got an ARM at 4.75. I remember that. And then we put a lot of sweat equity into it. So we remodeled the kitchens and things like that. And that's when I started dating my wife at that time, and I remember we were working there so much that she almost broke up with me because we were putting too much sweat equity into that property. But one reason I want to bring that up is I think as you, for yourself, or talk to clients and they don't have a lot of money or ways to get in, I didn't have money to buy another property. I just talked to a friend of mine, and so we went in partners. And with this guy, he's a really good guy. Where we don't even have an agreement written down. He's just a good dude. And so I have another one that I got with a friend. It was a different scenario. We'll talk about that. So this is kind of where we got started about this in 2004. We kind of gambled a little bit with the ARM loan, which actually worked out for us because then when 2008 hit and everything went crazy, the ARM opened up and we went from 4.75 to 2.75. So we just let it ride for a while, for a couple of years, and then as the rates came up, we locked it in. So I had another friend of mine, and a lot different personality. So when I talk to my friends and say, hey, if you don't have money to go in on a piece of property, find someone that you can trust. And this guy that I bought this other property with, his name's Jason. He has a really different personality. I know when we had renters and the lease was coming up, he's like, hey, should we raise the rent? I'm like, they're great renters. Why raise the rent? He's like, well, market's this. So he wanted to raise kick him out and raise like $50. And I'm like, it's not worth our time to kick him out. And he was just trying to grab every penny, which was good. But if you have great renters and they pay, they keep the house clean, I'm like, hey, just let them roll. So we found this one. This one's on Roosevelt. It's about 15th East, 15th South. And we found it because he lived across the street and the tenants were talking about how the owner wanted to sell. So we quickly went to the seller and put an offer. He accepted it. And I remember we had to close by July 14th. And we got a loan, an interest-only loan, and we closed on July 14th. It was really stressful, but this one again, we put a lot of sweat equity in, and it was a lot harder. But with this friend, I learned the lesson that it's probably good to get something in writing. He kind of came to me like every year and said, hey, let's sell this. And for me, it's all long term. I wanted to do long term. Because again, my two main goals, right, do something and retire. So I wanted to retire. So. But he just kept pressing me, and he sells life insurance. So he moved from across the street up to Boise, and then he bought a big book of business of life insurance. Then he came to me and said, "Hey, we got to sell." So he kind of forced me to sell. And again, I'm long term. So our relationship kind of got a little sticky there, and so I said, "Fine." I looked to see if I wanted to buy it. And I just couldn't, again, on my own, couldn't afford it. So I said, well, let's just sell it. So luckily we sold it to some guys who had some 1031 money. They just needed to close. They came in with like no repairs required, and it needed some repairs. That's why I didn't really want to buy it on my own, because that would be my problem. So we sold it. We had it in an LLC. And so talked to my accountant, I split it, put it into our names, so then I could 1031 the funds. So I 1031 the funds over to another property, then he took his money and got taxed on it and did whatever. I really haven't talked to him much since then, so. So I bought this property.
Can I say something?
Oh, yeah, sure.
You guys hear what he said? Pick up.
If you're gonna enter into a partnership with your name, you always have something in writing.
What else do you
Because
pick up
that's
on?
when you break up,
Yeah,
the relationship usually ends.
yeah.
Anything else?
Especially when it's over money, right?
I picked up that you had an LLC, solved it, and you put both of you two on the title, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
And then you pulled yours into a 1031 exchange.
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yep. So and I think we all buy real estate for different reasons, retire, passive income. And so when this came, I didn't really have a plan. And so I wanted some space, like Justin said, I have old cars, but again, they're junk cars, right? I paid like $1,500 for them, but my wife was going bonkers because I was bringing these crappy cars to my house. And so I bought this property on Redwood Road, and it's sitting on 1.3 acres. So it's on Redwood Road, right? Not a lot of families want to live on Redwood Road. So I said, okay, I'm gonna buy this. I'm gonna rent it out. It's a 4-bedroom, 1 bath, and it's got a small little detached 2-car garage. But in the back, I got an acre in the back where I can park my crap. And so this is not like the best investment, like money-wise, but for me and what I want to do and what I like to do and to keep the peace with my wife, it was a good purchase. It's still kind of, and I'll talk about it, it's still kind of bringing me some problems just with the acreage, but that's kind of how I acquired that one. And I always talk to new agents as I kind of meet with new agents. I was walking the grounds with a seller, and he had a couple offers, and he had a bunch of junk on there. He would build these like fancy latrines for like movie theaters, and not movie theaters, but like movies and firefighters, whatnot. Anyway, he was complaining that all these offers came and they wanted him off the property ASAP. So my offer came in that, hey, I'll give you 30 days to get off. And so that's the only reason I got it, is because I gave him 30 days to get out. I don't even think I offered more money, but I just offered him 30 days to get his stuff off. So that one worked out, yes.
Why are you buying $1,500 cars to store them?
That's a problem. That's a problem my wife asks, or a question my wife asks all the time. Yeah, I mean, I grew up liking old cars, and so I mean I have ones that drive and are licensed, but I just like old cars.
He's
So
humble. He has very nice classic cars.
And
Not really.
That's cool. I was just curious. I collect rocks.
no, I just grew up. All my brothers and family just like old cars, and so I would find deals on KSL. I don't really get on social media. I just go on KSL and find cars, but I would just again bring them home, and then my wife would go nuts. So it was nice. And then we have a travel trailer, and so I can park it there, not my driveway. So I found this one a different way, but again, it kind of just served what I was looking for at the time. And then again, I didn't have to pay taxes. So then you can see where I bought my one in 2006, and then I bought my next one in 2016. So, looking back, we all look back, why didn't I buy more, especially with where the market was sooner? But this one is just north of Valley Fair Mall. So this one, Justin actually helped me. And so I mentioned earlier, it's good to have some people around you that get you out of your comfort zone. And this is where Justin got me out of my comfort zone. And the reason being is all my properties up to this point were on the east side, because I knew the east side, just felt comfortable with the east side, and this one's on the west side. And so Justin really pushed me to where I needed to buy this for the numbers, not the location. Because in my mind, as I go and kind of do repairs and things like that on my own properties, I'm like, man, I don't want to be going here at 8 o'clock at night on a Saturday, right, on the north side of Valley Fair Mall. So, and then this one, again, I didn't really have, all the capital. So what I did is I have a brother who he has a trust because he was in a car accident several years ago. So his trust has some funds. And so I talked to my parents, who are the trustees. I said, hey, Ryan needs some future, he can't just be, he doesn't need a lot of money. He lives with my parents, but he just needed some wealth building himself. So I created an LLC to where I own half as an individual, and then his trust owns the other half of the LLC. And then we split the down payment on this. And so this one, I just did a regular 20% down. And I think you mentioned earlier about Mountain America's investor loan. So I bought my next one with that loan. Again, I partnered with my brother. This one is on the east side. It's in Sandy. And so it was kind of working with my brother, and then that loan program is great, so you don't have to bring as much money down with that. It's amortized over 30, but doing 15, so you got to plan ahead a little bit for that, but it works out.
Go back, like, what is it that, what were you so uncomfortable about? What about
It just is a space I wasn't familiar with, right? I didn't know the neighborhood. It wasn't that nice of a condition. Who wants to live there? But again, you just pressed me on, just look at the cash flow. And honestly, and the rents were low. Justin taught me on that. We got in. And this is actually the point too, where I have 4 kids. I just was running out of time to do all the fixing up and worrying about this and worrying about the tenants and their lives and their issues. And this is when I kind of turned it over to property management. So this is the first one I had Justin manage property managers. So his crew went in and, checked out the market, got the rates, the rents up. So I was just, I don't think it was necessarily the west side, it's just an area that I wasn't familiar with. And it wasn't somewhere that I would want to live, but.
So that was 2016, 8 years later. How is it done for you?
Say that again, sorry.
How's it done for you?
Oh, some great. Yeah. I think, cash flow has been awesome. It's a really low maintenance. As you can see, the lawn's awesome. There's not even a sprinkler system. And as I was driving the neighborhood, it's very consistent in that whole neighborhood. They're all the same. They've got carports. The yards all look the same. So I wasn't pressured on, I got to put a lot of money into this to get it up to. I'm not a slumlord, but it just wasn't a lot of pressure there. So that was a good buy, and it was numbers. As I kind of work through just keeping track of my numbers, it does well, and it stays pretty rented or vacant or occupied. Thank you. Yeah. I don't like standing in front of people, so thanks for the help. So it's been a good property, and it's not one that I do drive by my properties, kind of see how they're doing. I try to drive by them during the day, just kind of see how things go, and then drive by them at night to see. Again, I don't want to be a slumlord, so if the lighting's, if there's not a lot of lighting, I want to put some lighting. So, if the wife of the renter comes home, she does not have to worry about being dark or whatnot. So I try to make them somewhat decent. And then, got that one. So this one has caused me a lot of problems, which I'll talk about later, just in general. And then 2020. So I didn't put it in this slide, but my in-laws, they live in Blanding, Utah, and so they were talked into 2006, 2007 to buy a condo or a townhome in South Jordan, because it's just going to keep multiplying, right? The value is going to keep going. And so they bought this townhome at the peak, and then 2008 happened, and so the value plummeted. And so they had renters, they lived in Blanding, and so you can imagine trying to manage a property 5 hours away, and my in-laws have no experience in managing. So they came to me in 2012 and said, hey, do you want to take over this property? And I said, I just don't want your headache problem. I said, why don't you go to your son who helped you buy the property and convince you to do it? And so they went to him and he didn't want it. So they came back to me a year later, I think it was like 2012, and said, hey, we're just tired of this townhome. And it was a nice townhome. So I said, okay. I said, I'll take it over. I'll deed it over into my name. So I created an LLC, but we're leaving your loan there. I'm not going to touch your loan. I'm just going to leave it there. And they're like, fine. So I said, you got to know that loan's going to be on your credit until I pay it off or down the road. And so they said, fine. So I went in, I replaced the carpet, had to do the water heater, and got it rented, and it was great. It was kind of somewhat of a turnkey. I did have to have the conversation all the time with them about the mortgage on their credit because they'd refinance when things got, rates got better. They bought a few properties. And anyways, just kind of a thorn on my side, always telling them that it's fine. I'll show you the lease to your lender. Everything will be fine. Anyway, I got to a point where I had to deal with the HOA, deal with my in-laws, and I just kind of got tired. So I came to Justin and I said, hey, I want to take this townhome and I want to get more doors. And so we went, and so Justin found this. He actually found it off market for me. And so we went under contract, and I did get the Mountain America loan on this one. And again, this was another numbers over location because this place is much worse. Well, I don't say much worse, but it's worse than the previous one. It's a pretty interesting neighborhood. So I 1031 the condo, and Justin did a great job because we were under contract. And I remember we had a settlement deadline. I don't know if you remember this. And the guy was like very demanding that we had to close like 10 days sooner. And I'm like, well, we got the settlement deadline. But anyway, I think because he realized that he gave me too good of a deal. So, but that one worked out.
Don't you mean I did a...
Yes, that's right, Matt. Yeah. That's right. I've only had meth in this one once, so it's good. So yeah, good call. I think last summer of 23, I had the top right. The guy got busted for, I don't know if he's dealing meth, but anyway, so him and his buddies got busted, and so then county shut me down. I had to get meth mob in there. So anyway, so that's always fun. I'll talk about it a little sec about some of the fun stuff. So that one's been good. Again, that was the numbers one. It's in decent condition. It's okay, besides the meth. And then this is the last one I've bought. I had a friend who was selling it. He just got this inkling to sell. And so I said, all right. So I bought it, and it's been a good one. Another one I bought with my brother. So I own 3 with my brother, 3 on my own, and then 1 with my friend Rob, the first one I bought, the duplex. So that's kind of acquired this one just, again, so I acquired them through working with an agent, talking to a neighbor, talking to a friend, just talking about, again, my goals and what I want to do, and then that's kind of how I found these properties.
How are you structuring your partnerships? Like, are you coming in with a down payment and brothers on the loan, or vice versa? Or
So, yeah, good question. So down payments are 50-50, but with my brother, I'm not able to, he doesn't have, the loans are on me. Yep. And I mean, it'd be different. So the one I do own with my friend Rob, but we don't have a written agreement. Again, we're just such good friends that we just work together. Like, hey, can you drop by the duplex and look at this? Hey, I'm out of town. Can you do that? And so we haven't had any squabble about that, about issues, things like that. So been very, very fortunate. I mean, Rob's a really good guy. So, but yeah, I think now with this, I've had people say, well, you should take some money because you're doing this and that. And, I do go do some work on some of them, but, it's my brother, so it's kind of hard to. And I kind of want to do that because, I mean, we all have siblings, right? And so with my other siblings, as they see how I'm working with my brother Ryan, I just don't want to look bad that I'm taking advantage of him or the trust. So I just prove that, and I keep track. If he puts in $1,000, then I put in $1,000 just to keep track of all that. So if there's ever a question, so I talked about 4 kids. It gets hard sometimes. That's why I have most of them managed by Justin. But one thing I have enjoyed doing is involving my kids. just because I see what potential can be for me in my, retirement, whatnot. And so I want to educate them on just how money can work for you. And so I try to take them as much as I can. I was renovating a basement bathroom on this, so I brought them, and they actually worked. If I asked them to do anything at my house, right, I get, complaints, but they were fighting over who could. Maybe it's because we're doing destruction. Maybe that's why we do more destruction. But I try to involve my kids, so I kind of assign my kids to different properties. Just say, hey, this is one that I want you to look over, think about this, and so I'll take them to the property if there's a vacancy, let them walk through it, talk about what do you think about this, what do you think about that, just to kind of, because I didn't think outside the box. I didn't have that education as a kid. I remember the first car I got, in college, had no idea what interest rate, things like that. And so I don't want my kids to I want them to start earlier than I did as far as educating themselves on how money can work. So even with my 15-year-old boy, he mows lawns, he makes pretty good money. He's kind of an entrepreneur. And so I just say, hey, you can, as soon as you turn 18, you need to buy a property. And so we even had a conversation last week because he wanted to buy a car when he turns 16, and I said, no, just use one of my junkers, and then you just invest your money. And so I want him to own real estate because I don't know, you think of your kids and think you see prices and whatnot. It's like, man, how are these kids going to afford anything? And so this is where I hope they can do it. And I'd love to go in on with a property with them to just kind of get their feet wet. So, and you need a few extra hands doing some work. So I felt guilty a lot of times working so much on the houses and doing this and that. That's why I try to involve my kids. Then I feel a little less guilty. So I think with rentals, we've all had our issues. And so one of my tenant decided to start a fire last year. And so $53,000 damage on one. Yeah. And which is interesting is as one side was caught on fire and then gutted, a rainstorm came in and my other side of the duplex flooded. So I had fire on one side and then water on the other side. And this is all the same time that my one I showed you had meth. So it was second quarter of last year was awesome. So I had a lot of good phone calls. But you just need to plan for insurance or plan for issues. And so it's good to have, it was a lesson to me just to double check all my insurance with all my properties, make sure they're insured right, they're not owner occupied or, just they're insured properly. I don't know if you remember, Justin, but you had a deal years and years ago where the guy short sold his property and he owned the house. He moved out and let his son live in it. The house caught fire and then the insurance didn't cover it because it was an owner occupied insurance policy and the guy didn't live there. And so Justin had to help him short sell it. And that just always sticks in my head of that deal. And so just gotta make sure you're properly insured because, we've all been renters. We've all had renters. They just don't know anything, right? The guy was cooking something, went downstairs and forgot about it. And then here you are. So, which is good. You need to make sure your renters have renter's insurance. That helps out too.
Did he have renter's insurance?
He did, no.
So they went through that first before?
No, I filed the claim and then my insurance company went and filed a claim against his insurance. So I actually got my deductible back. So I didn't pay for anything. And then they got some money back through the insurance. But it was a huge learning process. There were probably I got some money for rents, but I had probably 2 or 3 months where I didn't get rents from the insurance because I guess when there's a fire, the fire department completely takes out the power meter, which makes sense, but I didn't know that. So then I got my guys go over there to fix it back up, and they're like, we don't have power. So then I call Rocky Mountain Power, like, oh, you need to get the Sandy City out there to inspect it. So I get Sandy City out there, they inspect it, and anyway, that took 2 months for the city and Rocky Mountain Power. So I was sitting there 2 months with contractors not able to do any work. So that was a huge learning process. And then know the local laws. So I got a property in West Valley City. They require a license. Salt Lake City has different regulations, things like that, where if you have rentals, you have to have licenses, or they love to come after you for that. So I've learned those lessons there. My Riverton property, apparently they don't like weeds, so my neighbors turned me in, or a neighbor turned me in, and so I had to hire some teenagers to clean up the weeds. So anyway, so that was a lesson learned. And so now with my Redwood Road property, I have to go and that's what I'm gonna be doing this weekend. I got a dumpster coming and just cleaning up stuff because I just don't like that. They actually took me to court, Riverton City, because they sent the information to a wrong address, and then they finally found the correct address and then sent me the summons. And so last year on Halloween, I went to court for Riverton City because of the weeds. So they were nice, but still it's kind of a pain in the butt. Anyway, so yeah, so fire, weeds, tenants, meth, it's all good. I don't have any experience with out-of-state investing or Airbnbs. All mine are long-term. I think with Airbnbs, I just don't really have enough time to stay on top of all that stuff. And then for me, what's helped me kind of stay on top of it is spreadsheets, and then I just calendar everything. I have to calendar everything. So in my calendar, I have the particular property. So then I'm like, okay, on this date, I'm gonna work on, making sure that everything's paid, checking my numbers, going over with my kids on the different properties. It just helps me keep track, because if not, I just go crazy.
How often are you touching? Like virtually or?
Once a month. Yep. Yeah, because like on my Mockingbird one, I know this is lame, but I noticed that I got 3 extra cans now, so I'm getting charged another $30. And so now I got to go and I called the city because I think the tenants said, hey, we need more garbage cans, which is fine, but I didn't know because I'm the one paying for the extra cans. So it's just little stuff like that. I just like to keep on top of stuff like that. Because, again, if I don't, then I got West Valley City coming after me for expired license because I didn't remember to renew it. I got stuff like that. And so I just don't like those calls from the city because they're not too nice sometimes. So, but that's it. That's, again, I just acquired them all different ways. I'd love to, acquire more. My wife and I have kind of talked about getting 1 or 2 more. And then, so anyway, any questions at all? Or feedback? I love any feedback.
What do you got? I can ask tons of questions, but you want me to start and then you guys can dig in? Okay, so you brought up a couple of things which I really liked. You're like, I'm going to assign a kid to each property, right? Because then I just started thinking, well, how could I pay my kid and then they could invest in like a Roth IRA? That's where kind of my mind went to it, right? And then it gives them some real world experience. And tell me, how's that gone?
It's good. It's good, especially my 2 older ones because they make money now and spend money. And so talked about inflation and, sticking money in a mattress and wait for 10 years compared to, investing it. So my 2 older ones, because they're old enough, they have just a Fidelity account, but it's just helping them learn that. So my 15-year-old, he's very gung-ho on it. And so he has, with the app, he can invest his own money and you can see how money can help him out. So it's good. My 2 younger ones are, 10 and 12, and so they don't really, they're getting there.
Each kid has a different propensity. I've got
Sure.
an 8-year-old that asks the price of everything and how and what, and I'm like, dude, slow down. I don't want to tell you all that stuff. But maybe next summer he's gonna come to work with me one day, and I'm gonna have him start doing stuff because he's so into that, So I think it's really important to involve a family, right? And then it vets them, right? Because on a weekend, you're out at dinner or something, you have to take a phone call or deal with crap. They start to understand this is how you make money, or this is why we're on vacation, and we still have to take care of stuff.
Yeah, and it's good to have people you can trust, plumbers and things like that. Just because and that's good to educate my kids on that. On one of my properties, I was getting a driveway put in, so I was over there getting the roots out. And on another property, a plumber called, said that I had a sewer backup. And so he could fix it right now for $8,000, right? Dig it up. And I'm like, oh, geez. So I said, well, let's just put that on ice for a second. So I kind of calmed down and said, okay, much better if I just call a plumber that I trust, get him in there, even if I have to pay for my tenants to get a hotel for a night. So I went that route, got another plumber in there. The tenants actually didn't take me up on the hotel. And he fixed it for $300. So it's just a good lesson for my kids because we all come into crisis modes. And especially my oldest daughter, that's just kind of her personality. She like freaks out about everything. It was a good lesson to her. It's like, hey, this is the situation, just calm heads prevail.
So you know what I heard about that, and really I might want to do this next month, is how to not just hire a property manager, but be an asset manager for your own stuff, because nobody cares like you care. The property manager does not care if you're going to spend $8,000 or $300, right? I mean, they care, but you understand the solution, and you sometimes will ask different questions and will ask different things from the contractor so that you can actually save money and get probably a better quality job done. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I've told Justin this, because again, he managed most of my properties. I tell people, you have to manage your property manager.
You've got to drive by it. You've got to sometimes pick up garbage, carry rubber gloves, a little sack in your car, because even though you pay somebody to mow the lawn and pick up the garbage, you still have to do it, right?
Yeah, and you just have to, I always push back on the property manager. She's right next door. Like, hey, your garbage disposal went out. They're going to fix it for $350. I'm like, $350? I know you can pay $100 at Costco. He's charging me $250 to install it. And then I say, find someone else. Just this week, I had a couple things, my fence fell down. And so she gets this guy over there and gets a couple quotes. And then of course, hey, they highly recommend you replace the fence. I said, I would too, but there's a big difference between replacing it and fixing it. So let's just fix the fence. So you kind of just have to push back a little bit.
What questions do you have? I have a question for you. You're talking about equity or sweat equity. What were you doing for sweat equity, and what do you do for sweat equity now?
So what I did in the past is I bought these and they were pretty rough shape. And so just kitchen remodels, bathroom remodels mainly. Like the one I bought on Roosevelt, that was a complete remodel. The other ones are just kind of minor. What I do now is I try to do as much as I can. So like if I have a vacancy right now and people live there for 8 years, so you can imagine carpet paint needs to be done. And so carpet was pretty cheap, but I'll go in and paint.
You'll paint yourself.
Yeah. The Mesa one, I had the fire, the insurance covered everything upstairs, but they didn't cover anything downstairs. So I had renters moving in, and so I went and pulled a couple all-nighters and painted the basement. I probably could have paid someone, but it's just a lesson to me that save a few $1,000. And I can just listen to podcasts as I do.
Who here would do that? Who here is willing to do sweat equity? Raised by your hand. Who's not?
No, and sometimes I can't. Sometimes I just can't do it.
There's no right or wrong. I'm just saying, like, I've done plenty of late night work, and I still have all the tools. These baby soft hands don't get as much as would be cool, but me personally, I try to do something once per quarter, right? It might just be like painting a shed, painting part of a shed, right? Maybe I don't have the time to be able to do it all, but it just kind of grounds me a little bit.
Help paint my nursery tonight.
Yeah, no thanks.
How involved is your wife? Or does she just say, this is your thing, go do it, go buy it?
Yeah, so the first house we bought, when we got married, we lived in that house, and that's the only one she knows where it's at. And that's the only one she cares about, because we redid the wood floors, we lived there for 10 years, and so now she's like, make sure the renters take care of the floors. I'm like, it's a rental. She still has a friend that lives next door, so she'll go hang out there sometimes, and she peeks over the fence. But if I say, hey, can you go drive by Mesa and check it out? She's like, I have no idea where that's at. She knows where Redwood Road is, because again, we store our trailer there, but other than that, she has no idea. So she could be very trusting or naive, right? No, but I have a little spreadsheet, of course, and so I just show her what the properties are, how much I think they're worth, how much the balances are on the mortgages, just so she has an idea of what's going on. So I do let her know.
What's your next 5 or 10 year plan for you?
I'd like to get 2 more. One with my wife and then one with Rob. Because the one that Rob and I bought in 2006, we owe like $30,000 on it. So I'm just staring at this equity. And
So how would you do it? Let's say the one you've got with your partner that you have virtually no mortgage. Would you do a cash out refinance and use that as a down payment? What would you do?
probably that, yeah.
So all that hard work to pay it off, and now you're just gonna blow it up with a mortgage?
See, that's why he pushes me. Yeah, I mean, the plan would be just to like let it ride, right? And then just take the cash flow, we split the cash flow every month and do that. But, I've learned that, why not buy another property, let that grow for 10 years and then sell that property and then go from there.
So acquire 2 more and then you're done. Then it's just pay it off.
Well, that's the
and-
goal. But again, with a lot of these, I had no plan on getting them and they just came. And so I always try to keep my mind open. Again, probably 2 or 3, I didn't have a plan on buying it, just opportunity came. And so I took it.
So do you have to be sophisticated to do this? I'm not saying he's unsophisticated, but do we sometimes make this harder than it really is? He just said, let's buy some shit and then let's hope it goes well. And what has it done? It's gone pretty well, right? Just because he's owned properties for over 20 years, right? You don't have to be, no offense, right? Or offense taken, like you don't have to be intelligent to do this, right? You just have to be a little bit driven, have some details, and you just do your best, right?
And I had to do it because, again, I didn't have retirement. I mean, I just didn't want to
We're
work.
all in the same boat
Yeah,
here.
I just didn't want to work my whole life. And it's not that I don't want to work. I just came to a point, it's like, I want some passive income.
I love it that you've got multiple properties, because if you only had one and you had a fire and flood, you might have been like, okay, this is not working. But the fact that you have others, it kind of gives you a bigger perspective, I think. Because they don't all go well. I mean, sometimes you have problems and it's not perfect, and that's kind
Yep.
of deal with.
And I tried to, so I put them in their LLCs and they have their own bank accounts because I try to not touch, again, for the kind of more trust from my wife. I say, hey, sorry, I have to, spend $1,000 of our money on this property. So nothing comes out of our personal stuff. And it's kind of nice to have one with my friend Rob, on my own, and then 3 with my brother. So then as things come, they're all in separate accounts and things are kind of where they're at. And it does help to have a few properties in an LLC because one might be doing great and then the other one just gets, fire and flood. So.
What's something you would not do again?
I don't really like, I had a condo and a townhome. I don't really like HOAs. Just dealing with them. Like, I get a call from the HOA because my renter's outside doing something. I'm like, nah. So now I got to worry about what the HOA cares about my tenant who's outside smoking, within 5 feet of the 25 feet. So HOAs.
And what I heard was you would never do a partnership deal without an operating agreement.
I think it's, just because life changes so much. I mean, what happens if I get, injured? They'd appreciate have some agreement that if my wife or my heirs stepped in, that they would be protected as well.
How often do you revisit like your corporate structure or your legacy plan for trusts or that kind of stuff?
Probably not as much as I should. I mean,
When's the last time you looked at it?
when they were set up.
What's that?
When they were set up. So 2004 and 2016.
Okay.
So that was the last time I looked at them.
What do you use for tax planning?
As far as I have an accountant.
Accountant?
Yeah.
No CPA?
He's probably CPA.
Cool.
He's good. So I send him all my stuff, all my spreadsheets, and they do it all. So, but he's good because he's a tax planner. Like he comes to me and said, hey, let's try to do this, try to do that. So yeah, get someone who is proactive. So
What are you doing to like expand your mind?
podcasts,
What's your favorite podcast?
non-sports. There's one called Deep Pockets that I started listening to. And then I use a lot of like motivational ones, like Ed Mylett is a good one. What's the one the Huberman, just to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And I don't listen like all of Ed Mylett's stuff. You guys listen to Ed Mylett? You can only listen like a little sliver of it because it's pretty intense. So yeah, so you kind of have to take your dose. So I'll look through and see which one might make me a little uncomfortable. Like this one, I'm finishing one now. That he goes through and interviews different people, and it's about burnout. So
What's your title experience kind of done for you with this?
it's nice where if I see a property, I can just get on the county records and see what's going on. So that's like when I had a condo and I had to be on a list of, you had to be in the top 10. And so I just got on county records and said, I am in the top 10. And so that helped out. So then
Top 10 for what?
well, for the percent on how many can be rentals and how many can be owner occupied.
Oh.
So they said I was like number 12. And so I went through and said, which ones are rentals? And they gave me the list and I went through the county records and they just didn't have an updated list. So that saved me there. But no, I mean, introduced to Justin, other agents, seeing what they're doing, hearing the stories, hearing the successes, hearing the failures. As I close loans on sales or purchases, and I know it's an investment property for the person, I ask them all the time, ask them questions. How's it going? How many do you have? Do you have property manager? I think I'm always asking people as I close how their experience is. So
Yeah, I just had a quick story actually. I don't know if I had an appointment with you or I was waiting. This is probably like 15 years ago. I walk in and he's on the phone and somebody is giving him the business. And I was like, I waited and I could kind of hear part of the conversation. And then I'm like, after he hung up, I was like, dude, what happened there? And he's like, this lady's crazy. She's got this fourplex and it's falling apart. And I was like, oh, tell me about it. We ended up buying that fourplex.
she's still crazy.
She is. She was freaking crazy. But here's what was cool about it is I was just the right place at the right time. I heard something and I asked some questions and then I didn't even buy it. I helped my client buy it offhand or off market and it ended up being a phenomenal deal, right? We bought it seller financing and then we put a secondary seller note from the second at like 3%. It was insane. It was like I don't think I've done another deal quite like that in my whole career, but it was phenomenal. And it just happened from being in the right place and then being curious and asking. And then we solved the problem, got our phone number. We ended up working out a deal and it was a great deal. And what I heard from him is he's not tied to any one source, right? He's heard from how can I do more deals or how can I get my hand on more opportunities. One, he can still help his brother, right? He can still help himself. He can combine those. He can combine his hobbies, have it invested on the front, use it to store his stuff on the back and still help his wife personally, right? So that he can still support his hobbies and his business interests and he's still able to write that off,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I've heard a lot of different things. Do you guys have any other questions or do you want to go to takeaways?
You brought it up. Yeah, you were going to mention something. You're having trouble with the acreage. You say something.
Oh, just dealing with the city. Dealing with the city on maintenance on that. So a few Saturdays I have to go and mow it down. But my plan on that one is it's 1.3. And so Toll Brothers just built on 118th South and Redwood Road. I don't know if you guys seen it. They just built like a whole kind of like L-shaped subdivision. And so I'm like 100 yards south of that. And so my goal is to maybe develop that because I can rezone it and put 5 homes on that. But my neighbor, he's down here and he owns that and then everything on the back. And so I might be able to get a U. So I'm just working on him to try to see if he wants to. He's an old guy with horses, but maybe he'll sell and we can do what Toll Brothers did. So that's down the road.
So piggybacking off of what Justin said earlier, like don't overthink this. If you're trying to acquire something now, what are your metrics you're looking at? What's going to be a good deal for you, like minimum?
That's what's hard, I think, because of the, where the prices are at. That's why I say maybe maybe partner with someone if the numbers don't work for you. That's kind of what I've thought is like with my friend Rob, we partnered, obviously partnered together to where it may not make sense right now, but if we hold a little bit and we got the other property, then kind of help compensate a little bit, then we can get there.
To buy like a negative cash flow property.
I mean, that's, yeah, if there's potential, like for example, like one that I could develop or maybe add a door with an AUD or ADU, right? So change it, that would be an opportunity, yeah. Because we have that property that can help us, back us a little bit so it's not coming out of our own pocket. Just because we all have crap we have to pay for, kids and college and sports and dance, so, yeah.
So
I have a question about your sweat equity. Did you do that just for like long-term holding quality or forced appreciation finances?
Yeah, probably a little bit of both, but at first it's just because we bought them kind of so maybe tight at the time, that we just didn't have a lot of money to hire someone to do it, and so we needed to get the rents up, and so we knew if we went in and redid the kitchen, do the bathroom, then we can get maybe a couple $100 because some of them were pretty bad. So it's the only time in my life that I almost threw up from smell was taking carpet out of a basement of one of them with a cat smell.
So back to metrics. Did you just say, I've got a pile of money in my bank account, it's time to buy something? Or you said, oh, it's been a few years and I need to stretch myself? What's your process?
I don't have a pile of cash in my bank account, that's for sure. But I think it's just stretching myself as I see what I want to do and retire, and I see where I'm currently at. And plus, over time, I've just maybe gotten a little less conservative. It's just if I got equity sitting there, I wouldn't say I used to listen to Dave Ramsey and I kind of get what he's saying, but like, you don't want a loan. But if I say I plan to retire in 15 years, why not get a loan, use that equity for 15 years to get another property, and then just write on the appreciation. So I didn't think that 15 years ago, 10 years ago.
So you've got a plan to retire. Does that mean you have a number? Is it a cash flow number? Is it a net worth number? What is?
So my thought on retirement is, so my parents, I grew up middle class. My parents, my dad worked for the federal government. He was a body and fender guy. My mom was a nurse, or still is. And then my wife's parents, they were both in the school system. And so they just, they just didn't have, they had to work. And I just don't want to have to work. So the only thing that really driving me is I want the choice when I can work and when I don't have to work. So I get to the age, I'm fine working. I like to work, whatever it is. But I just want to have that at a particular time, I want to have the opportunity, the choice to say, do I want to keep working, or does another opportunity come up and I do that? I don't want to have to work. I'm seeing my parents and I'm seeing my in-laws, and they just complain about this, complain about that, and so it's just lost opportunity that they could have done something years ago, and I just don't want to be in that. So I'm seeing their patterns, and I don't want to follow that pattern.
So you didn't really tell us.
I don't have a number.
Choice.
I want to have the choice. I don't want to have.
So you
to
just
work.
think one day you'll wake up and be like, I have the choice.
Life happens sometimes like that. Yeah. I mean, I have the number 60, right? 60 years old, but I mean that's just the number I have in my head. As I'm working through my spreadsheets, I kind of say, okay, this year, 2030, whatever, that's kind of where I'm shooting for, but it's not like this is the date, put it on the calendar. It's just, I want the opportunity.
Do you track net worth, or are you looking at cash flow or both?
On the sheet I provide for my wife, it does have net worth, but it's just like cash flow. Yep, cash flow.
Do you realize he's not really set a number about anything?
I don't.
Freedom number, Marcel.
I really don't, and maybe I should. Again, that's why I take open feedback. Hey, you need to have this amount. That's what you should be shooting for. I'm open to anything.
Well, I think what Justin's getting at is like, what is the amount of money that you would need to make every year so that you feel comfortable being able to walk away from your job? And then when you translate that into net worth, that's
Sure.
your number.
Yep. And I haven't figured that number out yet.
No, I'm fine with him not saying his number. He may not be, he may
But I
not.
think it's a good thing to have. It's just like, I haven't sat down and calculated, like, what do we need?
He may not be comfortable, right? But I think if I look at it from the other angle, is some of us are really numbers people, right? And it has to make sense. I don't know if I'm right or not, he's going off of feel. Is that
Yeah.
fair to say?
Yeah, and I don't mind working. If I hated work, then I'd have that number down, right?
No, I just mean by like, you're making investment decisions by like, this makes sense, and this makes sense to me. It may not make financial sense to somebody else that says, I've got to have this cash on cash return, or I have to cash flow this amount, or he's just saying, this makes sense, and I'm going to make it work.
Yeah.
It's a different take, because like so often that's what we're so focused on is what's the number, or like what makes sense, when is it a good deal? And like it's refreshing to see that like just over time, with you just acquiring property, that comes naturally also. It's
Yeah.
not to say that it wasn't without purpose, and it most certainly wasn't without mistakes or incidents happening.
Yeah.
But you were able to just, instead of getting paralyzed by the numbers, go out and do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And most of them, with your question, I mean, all the ones I bought, I made sure they cash flowed. But, at how much, right? Some it was good, and others is a little skinny for a while. Like my Redwood Road property, it's very skinny. But again, it serves a different purpose for me. And so that's why I felt it was a good buy, because it served two purposes. It's paying for itself, and then it's providing something
When
else.
you look at how much you'd be paying to store your car somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah, and then, Riverton City came down on me and said, it's not a storage unit or a storage facility. And so I had to tell a couple of my neighbors to get their stuff off. So now I just have a couple things there that people pay me for, a boat and a trailer. And so Riverton City thinks those are mine, but I'm getting paid for those. But I can't get too many.
Is that honest, Marcel?
Yeah. They pay me, it's all right.
You pay your taxes on that?
I do, actually. I report it to my accountant, so I do. Because it's on my spreadsheet.
You can just tell he's a good dude. Okay, so let's maybe do some wrap-ups unless we have any final questions. What's your big takeaways? And what I say by takeaways are, what did you learn today? Maybe something you didn't think about, or it's been a while since you've thought about it, and what are you going to implement or do differently? Because it's great for you to come here and be entertained, and look how he's felt his way through a lot of deals, but what are you really going to do?
Like two things that stood out to me is like knowing the laws, right? So you know what you're up against, and then just having a plan in case an emergency happens. Two kind of biggest things that I think that did that.
They will happen.
So what are you going to do, Jake?
Well, I don't own as many properties or Conquer Classics as myself. It's just good to know when I'm ready to make my next investment on, these goals.
Wait for Justin to say, when is that be that next investment? You got to ask the hard questions.
Been asking Jake that for like 2 years.
Well, here's the thing is, everybody is meant to be uncomfortable, right? If your life is comfortable and you've got everything you want, then you didn't show up today, right? Or you don't have any goals. And so if you want more, look, I'm not here to I'm not a big pressure guy, but if somebody wants something and he's like only used to the east side, and I'm like, look at the numbers here. The reason we went to that first one that made him uncomfortable, it was 3-bedroom, 2-bath in an area that he was mainly going to pay 2-bedroom, 1-bath on the east side and pay maybe $100,000 more for the property. And I'm like, look, there's a way. He got uncomfortable, and then it became comfortable to him. And so you're here to learn from somebody else's perspective, right? You don't want to just hear one person tell you how to do it, because that may not be your style. That may not be how it works for you. That's totally great. What are you going to do? What was your takeaway? Rita?
I want to go back and put all my stuff into individual spreadsheets and track better, pay attention to it more, and I want to check it. As the thought of having a fire and a flood, like not being prepared for that, makes me go a little white.
I did that a few years ago, and it actually lessened my cash flow because insurance rates have gone up. But guess what? It's so worth it. Until you have a fire, which I have had, until you've had a flood,
Yeah.
things happen in twos and threes, right? There was one year I had 3 different water mains had to be replaced. One summer, and I've never had to do another one since.
Was that sweat equity?
No, it was not. That was plumber equity.
Like, stop talking about zero means I've done this more than my lifetime's worth.
Any other takeaways? You share through a little bit of, you learn from some vulnerability, so this is a safe spot. Anybody else?
Yeah, I like the idea of being an asset manager. Like when I think of my own portfolio, sometimes the management side feels just kind of like me. But if I think of this as asset management, then it helps me take it a little bit more seriously, be a little more proactive about how I'm approaching it. So, and I also really liked this idea of really just not overthinking it, because as I help clients, there is a little stress when you're putting a client, connecting them with an investment property. Like if you put someone in a house that they're just gonna live in, they like it or they don't like the neighborhood, that's not on you, right? But if you're helping them with an investment property, it feels like there's a responsibility to like, this should perform the way that I told them it's likely to perform. So just having this idea that like, look, if you can hold this for 5 to 10 years, you're gonna wish you bought 4 more just like it. So just be patient, this is gonna be good. It takes some of the pressure off me, I think.
I was scared and nervous on every single one of mine. Like, yeah. But then I look back now, I'm like, man, I should have bought more.
And I'll be the first to tell you, when I was more naive, I made decisions that put me in a better position later. So there's some good qualities to being naive. I mean, you don't want to be blind, but you know. Anybody else before we wrap this up? Marcel, thank you so much.
But I was just saying, involving the kids, I mean, my kids are still pretty young, but I love the thought of giving them the education that I can have, right? And then the underinsured, all of my properties are still owner occupied.
Because you want the best rate and they'll,
I just want a cheap rate.
yeah. I switched my home insurance, and first time I looked at what my insurance guy put together, and it was like completely wrong. And so I was on my primary residence. What if something happened to my primary residence? And so now I just go through and, but yeah.
Beautiful. Thanks for coming. Would somebody like that topic next month of not just managing your properties, but becoming an asset manager?
That was a good one.
Okay. All right. We will do that next month. As always, you can bring anybody you want. You can bring your clients. You can bring friends, associates, other agents here. We do this on the fourth Thursday of the month? Fourth Thursday of the month at noon. Bring your lunch, and we try to get done in an hour. Sometimes we go into overtime, but we are right on time. So thank you for coming.